Hi there, good evening, welcome to Red Corner Boxing, and this is HardTalk USA. This program is proudly sponsored by EasyStorage.com. Oh my god, wait a minute.
Not a bad sponsor to get on board.
Sorry about that, I had the television on, my goodness. Proudly sponsored by EasyStorage.com for all your storage needs locally and nationwide. Welcome, gentlemen. Ra from Punch Out Boxing and the Boxing Man, Brett in Vancouver, Canada. Thank you for coming through, guys, for Hard Talk USA 33. Just before we start, obviously, the topic of the night is the WBC, and we're going to debate them and their movements of late. But Dimitri Bivol is no longer boxing's undisputed light heavyweight champion. Boxing is a simple sport, guys, and it's made complicated by various factions that root for their own interests at the cost of furthering the fight game, in my opinion. And Monday's developments are yet more proof that some of those who run it cannot get it out of their way. On Monday, Dimitri Bivol, pound for pound fighter in the world, informed the World Boxing Council via his attorney Patrick English that he has opted to relinquish his WBC light heavyweight championship belt. And that was according to Maurizio Suleiman on X. Welcome to the show, Rico. And Suleiman then blasted both for cold and impersonal notification. I mean, Bivol won the title together with the WBO, WB, and the IBF belts on February the 22nd in a majority decision when over his long-time 175-pound rival Artur Beterbiev. The result avenged Bivol's loss to Beterbiev, which many thought that he had won in their first fight just 4 months prior. They are now tied at one apiece in a gold standard brace of bouts. Now, Suleiman, on February the 1st, was asked a question, and Brunch Boxing, over our good friends over in the United States, reported that Suleiman had said the winner of Beterbiev and Bivol will be fighting their mandatory David Benavidez. Now, key words were missing out of that cleverly put together question by Brunch Boxing to Maurizio Suleiman, and he used the word next. Now, if you look at that video, Maurizio Suleiman picked his words very carefully. He didn't say next. He said the winner out of Beterbiev and Bivol. Well, there is no winner, ladies and gentlemen. It's one apiece. So that's very generic talk from Maurizio Suleiman. And, a lot has got to be said about the movements. I mean, it's a boxing, it's a sport that should produce winners. Take your fists, ram them into your opponent's jaw and ribs until they cannot continue. Or judges deem you to have your opponent and yourself a victory. This dispute, though, has only produced losers. Bivol loses out his trilogy to no longer carries undisputed, and Suleiman is rushed to anoint David Benavidez as an elevated champion, makes a loser out of the Mexican monster, because it goes against Benavidez's personal brand anytime, anywhere. And according to that, it's not and he said himself it wasn't the ideal way to win a world title. And, according to his words, in which he conducted himself inside and outside the ring to date, shows he'd like nothing more to earn the title like that by defeating Saul Canelo Alvarez or Bivol in the ring. Not email. He's now officially the light heavyweight champion. I mean, this week's ordeal just exposes the WBC's own hypocrisy, as it was in no rush to strip Alvarez when Benavidez was pound for pound mainstay's mandatory challenger, at super middleweight for more than 2 years. Instead, the WBC was very flexible in allowing Canelo to fight whomever he wanted. Even if Benavidez had been long considered the second best fighter in the division, he never enforced the mandatory. Back then, ultimately screwing Benavidez out of a massive payday and the chance to become undisputed. There was never a hint from the WBC that Alvarez could lose his title outside of the ring. Bivol famously beat Alvarez in 2022. And then a couple of months later, the WBC imposed a ruling in which Russian and Belarusian fighters were removed from its ranking pool. In light
Racist.
of Ukraine. Now, just months after Bivol won the WBC title, Bivol's no longer a WBC champion, having been afforded nowhere near the level of flexibility the WBC previously allowed Alvarez, Charlos, for instance, and other PBC fighters. And let's let that one in before we move on. In doing so, the WBC has ignored due process. The source within Team Bivol has confirmed. Now, Bivol Bertaviev 3 is indeed next, as we have told by Eddie Hunt and Turkey Al-Sheikh. And the sanctioning body, which had claimed to be next in line, would have been the IBF. As confirmed on Brunch Boxing's very own space by Gustavo Oliveira, that the IBF are next in rotation. But funny enough, the IBF have been very quiet since February the 22nd. They made a promise to the WBC made a promise to Benavidez, and in their haste, they have made this a very controversial decision. Now, gentlemen, I'm going to come to you, but I want to go to Rico first because I want him and his views on this before I go to Ra after Rico. I want all your opinions, but you get free rein here, Rico. The floor is yours. What do you think of this situation?
Well, first of all, it is always an honor, and the pleasure is always mine to be here on Red Corner Boxing Talks with my OG, triple OG, to the quadruple OG, Mr. Neutral, as he's known on the streets. Well, you've said you let's dissect a couple of things there. I do believe I have 5 to 6 minutes. Firstly, the WBC aren't really worth piss in it, really. They create these belts every single fight now. Okay, nobody even wants that Mayan belt. Okay, no one wants the Quinceañera belt. Nobody wants the Wakanda belt. Like and they're almost forcing themselves, because they can see, with the choices that they've made in terms of how they are becoming irrelevant. They do stupid. Am I allowed to? They do stupid stuff almost on a daily basis. If we look at the Dillian White situation and his mandatory and everything like that, if we there's countless examples. Like what the greatest heavyweight ever, Lennox Lewis. Famously chucked the belt. So there's always controversy with Maurizio. I just feel like there's just it's mediocre at this point. The WBA are even worse. The WBA are probably the worst sanctioning body you could possibly fight for. I know personally 4 fighters in each sanctioning body that haven't even paid sanctioning fees. And I'm not going to tell you who, because I don't have money for lawsuits. That's not what we do. So what I'm trying to say now here, gentlemen, is that really and truly, it's those rankings are worth piss. The Ring magazine rankings have always been true. truly aligned to the talent and esque of whichever division. Maurizio Suleiman continues to, and I've interviewed Maurizio Suleiman. Shout out to his secretary. I really like her. It's cool. But he denounced. How can you blame Bivol for telling him to? Am I allowed to swear, Padre? Can I get like one swear word?
Yeah, it's hard talk.
All right. Oh, fucking hard. So, for Bivol, Bivol told him to fuck off. Told him to fuck off, and I understand. Firstly, like, bro, I couldn't fight for Undisputed because I was Russian. That's gotta be racist or something. There's gotta be something there. Surely, there's got to be something there. And then after, when he allowed them, and then I asked him myself, and he said, you're now allowing Bivol to fight for Undisputed when all the other Russian fighters who didn't even do anything, right, who are actually paying your sanctioning fees, you are discriminating against.
Russian fighters are still banned, by the way.
And this discrimination from the WBC, this discrimination, this just you're the shambolic running of what is supposed to be perceived as the premier belt. No. There's no consistency from the WBC. The way that even with mandatory, like you're not next. The IBF is next, right? I'm assuming yes, the IBF is next in rotation. Who are you, bro? And firstly, you are the reason for this email championship in the first place. You're the first person to give the email championship shit to Lomachenko. Lomachenko was the first email champion out here. And then it was Devin Haney, and then the lineage is actually kind of good, but that was just a fluke. All right. It's Gervonta Tank Davis now is an email champion. You've started a trend of giving titles to people where they have a disputed claim in which they haven't really earned it, because Benavidez has had his choice of mandatories at 168, 175. I don't want to hear about Benavidez from any of those fans. I'm sorry, I don't hear fuck all from any of you, because this is just nonsense, really. Right? I put out a tweet, Padre. Sorry, I think I have 2 minutes left, and on well done, email champion, and I got resistance, in the form of tweets from some people. There was one tweet that was like, you a hating ass mofo. I said, it's not nice. Why? Because, well, what is he supposed to do? What is Benavidez supposed to do? He was supposed to not do cocaine and pizza, and then he would have fought Canelo. And then after, he still ate more pizza, lost his belt again. I mean, like, are we living in a fucking Twilight Zone?
How many chances does he need? And now he's been given a gift.
He has been given everything, mandatories, everything in 2 different weight divisions. He's had his pick of Canelo, he has this or whatever, and then he's still like on Instagram, Turkey, Alashi, please help me, you're the only one that can make this. No, Canelo's basically like, bro, this guy's a mug, bro. Like, why do I need to do anything for this dude? I'll probably even punch him. Canelo will still beat him. I've not seen anything from Benavidez that I can confidently say he beats Beterbiev. He beats UD Bivol, the UD Bivol, who should have won both of those fights, but and Canelo. I think Canelo, the most famous the Irish. I'm not going to complete that joke, but the most famous Mexican out there, right? An actual legitimate Mexican. He would absolutely. He would probably put Benavidez down 3-4 times to a unanimous decision. We all know what's going to happen, but Benavidez has literally. I can't see how people champion him in terms of the fact that he is the architect of his own failure. Sorry, just a couple of seconds. Architect of his failure, right? Multiple times. No one told him to do blow in Ibiza. Nobody said that, and he was just doing it. So, I mean, What are we doing here, Padre? What is the WBC doing? And then they have, and then there's this email that I have that I might release or whatever. It's an email that says, "Hey, WBC champion," and send it to the silver champions, international champions, Mayan champions, all the champions, and it's like, oh, can you put out a post with your WBC belt and just say how happy you are to be a champion? No, Maurizio, I'm not going to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Rico.
Sorry.
Thank you very much indeed. Ra, I'll come back to you in a bit, mate. Ra, you have your own views on this. Tell me.
I'm unimpressed with all parties in this. Don't take any particular side. I think all of them have been behaving goofy. Benavidez, if I recall correctly, was the first fighter to publicly appeal to Turkey when it was obvious Riyadh season were putting a lot of money in. And when Canelo was saying if he's going to fight Benavidez, he's going to want X amount.
Yeah,
so I think Benavidez was the first to appeal to him. So that was the first thing, a bit whack on his part. Now the chronology of how this has come to pass is all a bit odd as well, because initially of February the 22nd, last crescendo, Turkey invited Benavidez to be ringside, and he at that point was still saying he wants the winner of Benavidez and Morel, which of course turned out to be Benavidez, to fight the winner of Bivol Beterbiev 2. Benavidez went to Riyadh, but left before the main event. Shortly after that,
this guy's not serious, bro. Sorry.
He starts saying, "Oh, I'm not going to go back to Riyadh if I'm going to fight for the light heavyweight championship. It should be in America." Blah blah blah. This, remember, is the same guy that at one point was previously appealing to Turkey to put up money to make fights that he wants to be in. I think a while after that, Turkey says, right, I'm no longer interested in putting on the Benavidez fight. And Bivol, you know who's delivered for you.
Yes.
Make your choice wisely. Now, that's an interesting choice of words.
Yes.
Choose wisely, which means if you get a choice, that means Bivol Beterbiev 3 at that point wasn't locked in.
Yeah, but this is the get out clause.
It wasn't locked in, because why would you be telling him make your choice carefully
when the contract signed? This is a question.
Why would you wait, and why would your promoter wait for the purse bids to be called and then pull out of them, instead of in advance announcing, well, sorry, governing bodies, all four of you, but we've already signed for the trilogy fight, so your mandatories, you can put them on hold or do whatever your rules are saying, but this is what we've signed up for. And in fact, usually these things, when they're signed, the governing bodies are already made aware. Yeah. A bit like Fury and Usyk, all four governing bodies knew the heavyweight mandatories are going to have to be put on hold, because to make the undisputed fight in the first place, it had to include a rematch clause. So, I'm more annoyed with Turki Al Sheikh and Riyadh season, because after all the time he's going to through all the promotional shenanigans and governing body shenanigans, because let's be honest, Maurizio ain't the power he thinks he is in this. Ultimately, let's be real, he ain't as powerful as he thinks he is. The guys with the money can twist his arm if they want, but Turki Al Sheikh didn't want to. Now, for what reason? It's something to do with why Benavidez left last crescendo early. Did he feel snubbed? Did he refuse to hold his hand? I don't know what the reason is, yeah? But this ain't the power move Turki Al Sheikh thinks it is. Shall I tell you what a power move would have been? If you really are about, I'm going to take over the sport and I'm going to cut out all of this political crap. When Benavidez says, I'm not going to go back to Riyadh. He was like, okay, you know what? How about this then? I'm going to bid for this WBC mandatory because my fighter Bivol is so superior to you. He's going to whoop you. Not only that, you're saying you don't want to come to Riyadh. Okay, that's fine. I'm planning on putting a show on in Alcatraz, which is in California. I believe it's in San Francisco Bay, which is Benavidez's backyard, right? And this is how much of a badass power broker I am. I'm going to make in your backyard a private show, so much so that you, even in your own backyard, Benavidez, you ain't going to have no fans because it's going to be a private show and I'm only going to invite Bivol's mates, family and friends to come and cheer him.
All the Russians.
God, that would be a power move because all this talk about Better BF3, it ain't locked in. Better BF is so unreliable at 40. We don't even know if he's back in training yet. We don't even know if he can cycle on and off whatever medications he needs to be able to fight at the top level. It's not locked in. So Turki Al-Sheikh should have told his fighter Bivol, undisputed champion of the world in the prime of your career, deal with this upstart. Meanwhile, Better BF, you do what you need to because you can only fight once a year. Once Bivol's got rid of this guy, come the end of the year when Riyadh season is back in full flow because it is a winter destination, then you guys can do your trilogy. That's what a power move would be. But instead, what have we got? We've got the same old promotional petty politics that we've always had. This ain't nothing new, Rico. Email champions and stuff. Lennox Lewis was an email champion.
You're wrong. I'm only answering because he said my name.
You go back as far as when Cassius Clay was stripped of his titles. Joe Frazier and I can't remember the other guy. Was it Ernie Shavers?
Ernie Shavers.
They elevated to champions. So this is nothing new, but we thought that Riyadh season and the amount of money they had would just bulldoze everyone's bullshit out of the way. Yeah, they haven't. He's indulging in the same crap. So ultimately, because Turki Al-Sheikh has the money, I'd actually blame him more than anyone. And you know what? Just for good measure, I'm going to have a go at Bivol as well. You know why? There's too much of this fighter worship from people like Rico, for example. Yeah, he's great. Bivol is superb. But if he was really about it, he would have told Turki Al-Sheikh, thank you very much for what you've done for me. But as undisputed champion of the world, I have got responsibilities. Let me get rid of this guy, Benavidez, yeah, as the best 175-pound fighter in the world. Let me do the job, get rid of him, and then I'll come back and fight.
He's not a trash talker, to be fair, though, is he?
He's like, he just rolled over.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Ralph. Thank you. Brett, mate, you've been a very patient man for 30 minutes. It's time to bring the voice of reason into this conversation. First and foremost, give us your views on the WBC's ruling and and the enforcement of the relinquishing of the belt. And Benavidez, tell me what you think.
Well, first of all, I feel a bit out of my depth today because you boys are cooking, absolutely cooking.
Not Ra. Ra's not cooking anything. In fact, it's bland.
Hey, listen, Rico. Everyone has their opinion, right? And
I know. I respect.
You might come after me in a minute when I start cooking.
Probably. Yeah.
But the reality is, and also great start to the show as well, Mr. Neutral. You were fantastic there. I really enjoyed that. And yeah, I have been patient sat here, but I can't really add too much more for the arguments that are going off in terms of like what's needed to be said has really been said. In terms of the WBC, it's making a mockery of the sport. This elevation of a champion without fighting for a belt. But you got to ask yourself a question, and I'm just putting it out there. Do you actually really, because you can say what you want about Benavidez doing this, or in his personal life, he's putting on weight, he's doing whatever, he's partying. you actually think he wants to be elevated to be a champion, or do you think he wants blood? Because I personally think, my personal opinion is he wants to fight. He wants to fight. I don't know if is it him that's stopping it. What happened with that whole Riyadh thing where he walks off before the main fight? What's gone off there? Has he told Turki Al-Sheikh to fuck off? Because Turkey's trying to parade him around like a fucking sheep. Like, what's gone off? And you watch him. He wants to fight. And when every time we watch him in the ring, he fights. So for me, I disagree. I love Rico to bits, but I disagree that the names that he said wipe the floor with Benavidez. I don't think so. A fully fit Benavidez is a dangerous man. And you can put Canelo in front of him, you can put Bivol in front of him, and you can put Benavidez. You can put Beterbiev in front of him. He's a live dog, man. He wants to fight. And you know, I ain't going to go back into all the other points that the lads have already spoke about, because you've nailed it. It's been really, really actually great to listen to and informative. But the one thing I'll say is Benavidez wants blood. That's how I see it. And that's my opinion on it. He's a fighter. He's a true fighter. Whether the money's come to him and he's living his life differently, he still wants to fight. And a lot can be said for all of these that get like Gervonta and people like that. It's the people around them that change them. They're fucking fighters. They want to fight. Surely they want to fight. Otherwise, the game is dead. And you've got people like Sullivan. You want to try and take on a guy like Turkey. Sullivan wants to take on Turkey right now. Nah, it ain't happening. All the fighters want to sign with Turkey because that's where the money is. And what's going to happen is eventually the big dogs are going to fuck the belts off and they're just going to fight for Turkey money. That'll be it. The belts won't mean anything anymore. Undisputed is starting to wane. We're purists. We want to see undisputed fights. We want to look at the divisions and go, that's the best fucking man on the planet right there. That's the best fucking man on the planet because he's beat every single person and he's earned it. But they're looking around going, well, hold on a minute. If I'm getting roadblocks here, and at the end of the day, my career is important, of course, and legacy is important, but Turkey's offering me 15 fucking million to wipe the floor with somebody. I'm going and taking that on. So this debate's got hours and hours and hours in it, lads, if we're being brutally honest. But you know, ultimately, it's not a good look, is it? Because none of us are happy. None of us are happy.
No one's happy in this situation, not even Benavidez. But coming back to you, Rico, I know you're itching. I got a question for you. Based on
what side rules.
I know you love questions and answers. So my question is David now got to be a victim of his own success in the sense that he will be frozen out of Riyadh season and he'll end up fighting PBC fighters or American fighters, you know, maybe top rank, maybe a golden boy, but this is going to be a very disappointing reign for Benavidez. Do you think that we're ever going to see a Bivol fight, knowing the background now between the animosity between Turki Al-Sheikh and Maurizio Sulaiman?
I mean, for me, now I'll be real, okay? And I've said this loads of times now. And obviously, big up Red Corner Boxing, man. Please, guys, like, share, subscribe. This is my family over here. There's only one person that can shout me, and I don't want to do things. And he'll be like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, it's Mr. Neutral. Really, Maurizio, like, first of all, everybody needs to realize that you have to pay for your ranking. You have to pay your sanctioning fees. Well, I actually learned this like a while ago now. You don't, but okay, let's pretend like actual stuff is like that. You don't, you know, it's not the way Maurizio has ran the WBC. Has been, there's been good times and there's been bad, but it's just been like, when I say good times, I mean like, you know, where fights have actually been able to be made because of obviously Turki Al-Sheikh, the greatness that is Turki Al-Sheikh. I feel Maurizio understands his own mortality now. I feel that he knows that, you know, it's just been one bad decision. Remember when they had it? Remember when with Dillian White and his mandatory thing, and they had a whole season 1, 2, 3 synopsis, and until for the new season, like it's like you can only do fighters can only accept all of that malarkey for so long. And the thing is that why would anybody want to fight for a sanctioning body that you have to pay for when you can actually go to the TKO league and you don't have to pay for any sanctioning? You are paid for fighting completely, and you are ranked within that organization, and you know what I mean. So like I because people say, you know, like doing away with the WBO, the WBA, or whatever like that, it's, you know, the history of the belts or whatever. Fighters have been screwed for those belts, bro. Like almost every single like year. Like I don't see what's this great thing that in, yeah, you know, the fights in terms of the legacy or whatever, but you know, it's just I don't see the alphabet titles as, you know, I feel like they are rightfully losing relevance, because obviously with the turkeys and because of what, you know, but you know, they haven't helped themselves at all, partner.
Thank you, Rico. Thank you, Rico. Well, guys, we will move on. As Brett said, we could debate this subject for hours. You know, at the end of the day, it's only produced a better taste in the mouth. Yes, Benavidez fans, you know, rightly applauding the new champion, but that's not the way he wanted to win it, I'm pretty sure. And let's only hope that the fractured relationships within boxing, and especially promoters and sanctioning bodies for that matter, get their heads together and do what's right in the name of boxing and furthering it. Right, guys, we've got to move on. And tonight's other subject is obviously the review of last night's show, or shows if you want. But we got to start off with Boots Ennis and Stan Jonas. I'll just quickly say this. I was surprised at the level of technician that Boots showed last night. Stan Jonas, my only problem with him was his inactivity, but he come in strong, no excuses. Gentlemen, I mean, what are you saying, right? Boots Ennis, undisputed at 147, realistic, or is he going to move on?
No, I think that ship sailed. I keep hearing everyone talking about undisputed this, undisputed that. Yeah, it was a good win, of course. You know, his talent has been talked about for years. You know, people are saying he's, you know, the best American talent since Roy Jones Jr. in terms of athletic ability, but combined with much more exceptional fundamentals, you know, being from Philadelphia and all that. But no, I think he's 28. He's been at welterweight since he turned pro. He wasted too many years at PBC where essentially they parked him, keep him away from Spence. And I think that ship sailed. Like I said, I think the politics just won't work out well for him. I mean, he looked so skinny at the weight that the weight cuts, if that weren't the last such weight cut he can do, he ain't got many more in him where he can still perform to that level. I don't think. And we've seen already that the other two champions will play hard with him. And part of that is his promoter's fault. I think Eddie Hearn takes some of the blame for Norman Jr. and his dad trying to hold out for more money. Because if you're a promoter making a big song and dance like I'm the top promoter, I can turn anyone into a superstar, and then you've got a fighter who can't get any big fights, and of course the rival's going to say, yeah, sure, you're this guy that you said you're going to make a superstar. You ain't got any other good fights for him other than us. So our fee is now this. Well, that's his promoter's fault. Anyway, I digress. I don't think those fights can be made in a timely enough fashion. for him. So I think leave it. And you know what? The other two champions aren't particularly highly rated. So I don't think there's that much legacy for him at 147 in the greater scheme of his career. I think, you know, you were unified, move up to 154 and then have a good run at 154. I think that's where his real legacy will be established. Because if you think about someone like Roy Jones, he started at middleweight, but he only had a few fights there. His real legacy is about what he did after that. So I don't want to see Boots waste any more time wrangling with these other two. I don't think they'll get Barrios anywhere near him because he's with the PBC. Yeah, I think he should do what James Toney did with Jones all them years ago. You two gents might remember it, but in them days, you know, Toney was struggling with super middleweight, and he gave Jones an ultimatum, like, this is what's on offer. You got this much time to accept it, or I'm moving up to light heavyweight. Yeah, and Jones was forced to take it. He ain't in as strong a position because I think the rest of the welterweight division, they're waiting for him to move on because then they're all roughly about the same level. So you get me? So that they probably all have a chance against each other, but they don't have much chance against Boots. So I think unfortunately that won't work for him. I'll say if he can maybe try for at least a month or so to try and get one of the other champions into another unification. If they play hardball, just dump them and say, right, everyone at 154, I'll take on all of you. And there's, you know, I think 154 is the best division in the sport right now. Yeah, like I said, I think his real legacy's there.
Thanks, mate. Brett, after the Boots showing, Eddie sort of hinted that he took less money to fight Stan Jonas in his fight. He had to make a sacrifice to get this belt, and it's time to move on and get big money fights. Do you think that can happen at 147, or is that right? That's where the money is 154, the big fights, and Eddie, you know, has to make certain promises and move him on quickly.
Yeah, a couple of layers to that. First and foremost, I think it was absolutely top draw matchmaking yesterday. Absolutely fantastic matchmaking. He needed a standout performance against a relatively good name, not a top name, but a good name that came with some pedigree, undefeated fighter, and he looked sensational. His punch selection was different class. Of course, as we always find in the world that we love, you know, you read through comments today, oh, he's only beat a fighter that's coming off an 18-month layoff. The reality is that it was a strategic move. That's point one. Point two is we spoke about it on the watch along. I was slightly concerned with the way that Eddie had promoted him throughout the week, and I kind of thought, is he ready? Is he ready to cash out on him because of the star quality is there, but he's not bringing in the star quality numbers. He's not bringing in that global traction that they thought they were going to do. So Eddie's paying him a rack of money, but the investment is not. So Eddie, I was thinking so is. But then, because of how good he looked, and we spoke about it, is the celebration from Eddie and the smile was this big. Because he's like, yes, he is a star. Now I can market him. I can really market him. And he's probably going like this, he's probably going like this, looking at his phone, ready for Turkey to say, okay, I'm a believer now. Let's get him in a big fight. On to the third point. You're absolutely spot on, right? He needs to move into that big boy division. You spoke about it yesterday, Mr. Neutral, in saying how dry he was. So the weight cut in, what is he, 28, 27, 28?
27, yeah.
Yeah, the weight cut in is obviously starting to have an impact on him. Luckily for him yesterday, he didn't get found out with it because the competition just couldn't handle him. So he wasn't in there with somebody that was live. I think, I don't know if you've been back and rewatched it, mate. I haven't had a chance, but was Jams right that he did try and quit a round earlier? Did he try and quit a round earlier?
It was the trainer. The trainer said, I'm going to pull you out. It's up to you.
Right. Yeah, and then when he came out in that round, he got dropped, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, the writing was on the wall. Yeah, at the end of the day, we wanted to see something that we could get a little bit excited about. You know, yesterday, and the naysayers and the critics and the armchair boxing fans, the pajama wearers, they'll all say, well, you know, he's only beat this guy. But now, as we spoke about yesterday, it's what's next. It can't be another Stanionis type opponent. It has to be somebody with 33 wins and 30 knockouts, or 29 knockouts, whatever it is. With that type of resume now, with the money that's in boxing with Turkey, Eddie has to match him. He has to pay a little bit of dough, and he has to match him with a marketable name that we're all going to tune in and we're all going to pay. If you're over here, $79.99. If you're over there, $19.99. You need to see that next. And I want to see it. And I was actually pleased, because what we were talking about yesterday, mate, I was pleased to see that type of performance. And I'm not going to go down that route of saying, well, it was just Stanionis, because everyone, you know, if you did a little bit of research, Stanionis is a live dog. And he can have a go. He can have a go. And yes, okay, his resume's not fantastic. He's not got big names on his resume. But we thought he was going to pressure him, and he tried. What round was it where we were speaking? Was it the second where it was like, all right, he's coming a little bit. He's coming a little bit. But then Boots just took over. And so good on him. It's great to see these stars flourishing, because whilst we don't know what the future of Turkey is he going to be here for a long time? I know Rico's dropped off now, and he's a big fan of the Turkey. So we'll get into that another time. He's a big fan of the Turkey money to bring these big nights. We need to see Boots in a big fight next.
Yeah. Right. I mean, Eddie was naturally delighted. Must have been a huge relief now that after that stoppage, when he can now sell Boots to Turkey in a far stronger position than he could with, say, Shakur Stevenson. There must be the fear of selling Turkey a dud now in boxing. Yeah. Our promoters are going to be super aware of this from now on.
Yeah, but also, I mean, well, I do think the promoters are hedging their bets because of Turkey's somewhat erratic petulance. Because I actually thought that Turkey had insinuated he weren't happy with the way Boots turned down the Ortiz fight.
Yes, true.
So we don't know if Boots is still in Turkey's bad books or not. Because let's be honest, on Riyadh season, there's been some far lesser fights than the sort of caliber Boots can bring. So we don't know how petty Turkey is. The signs are
yeah, I get that, but could Eddie be like that to Turkey? That, you know, I think we're justified in the position now of turning down Virgil, because I think after that win and being a unified champion at 147 now, there is no more doubt that fight, should he move to 154, should be the next logical, and maybe it could be for more money.
Yeah. I mean, from a proper promotional point of view, a traditional point of view, it made more sense to build that fight up. Yes, I know the whole thing around over-marinating doesn't work, but the truth is Boots and Ortiz, they weren't global superstars yet. And it's certainly not a fight that makes sense in Riyadh until you're a global superstar. I would like to see. I think that fight makes sense after. Say Boots moves up, the logical guy would be the IBF champ Bahram Murtazaliev. He's the IBF champ. Yeah, so I think he can get straight in at a high ranking, or maybe a straight shot at him. No one's exactly calling for Murtazaliev, are they? So that's the logical one, and I think Ortiz is in line to fight Fundora. So if they can force those two fights through pretty quickly, then them two as a unification, I think that'd be the right time. I mean, you wouldn't need any more marinating than that.
Over, man.
Then it'll be a super fight, yeah. And so maybe Turkey would buy into that. Let's see that. But Fundora is an almighty obstacle in that division because he's with the PBC, and the PBC look like they're trying to keep him on ice for Spence's return. So yeah, we'll have to see who comes out in that sort of tug of war for power over, like I said, probably the best division in the sport.
Thank you, mate. Now, Brett, I'm a big legacy man, right, in boxing. I feel, right, that there is another fight at 147 pounds for him in Brian Norman Jr. And I'll tell you why. Because that's something that won't go away for Brian Norman Jr. And in some sense, should Boots go up to 154 and he's not successful, some will say it's a missed opportunity at 147 for Boots to have gone undisputed or at least give it a try. How important is it in 27 years of age? Now that he's unified and he's not the most sellable guy, how is it important to back up his own reputation by saying, look, I may not be the biggest seller, but I'm the biggest winner. Is he in a bad spot where if he moves to 154 and like Ras says, you got a big obstacle in Fundora, you got an even bigger obstacle in front of you in Virgil Ortiz, and there's a possible bowling man in Murtaza. There's got. Do you agree? There's got to be a certain element of risk at moving to 154 for Boots.
Yeah, of course. But in terms of, I'm the same as you, mate. We're similar age in terms of like the ones that we talk about fondly have got legacy. But the issue that we've got now is this money in boxing right now, and fighters. When we're talking about Sullivan being, we just spent 35 minutes on Sullivan, the way he's acting, they just go, yeah, okay, I can fight him for that. But you know what? I can fight him for that. Yeah, I'm not bothered. I'm fighting him for that because I'm 27. That's another 10 mil in the bank. But I tell you, and I know, let's not get into it today because I know everyone's got their opinions on this particular fight. But the fight that's coming up pretty soon here, Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. If Conor Benn does iron him out, which is a big if, right? That'll be I'm telling you right now, bookmark it. That'll be the fight next. That'll be the fight. What Eddie will do. Eddie will put Lamb to the slaughter.
Yeah.
He will push Conor Benn into that because it's going to make him absolute fortunes, and it will put Boots on the global scale because Turkey will pay stupid money for it as well. But but there's lots of ifs to it. Of course, I personally think Conor Benn will not win. I think I'll go back and forth in fight week, but I feel like Chris Eubank Jr. is just too big and too strong. But if he does make a statement, because where does a Conor Benn go after that? Who can you really put him in with? So Eddie's just going to go, there you go, I'm going to make a load of dough off this, and you two are going to make a load of dough. So when we talk about legacy fights, that's not a legacy fight. That's a financial fight, and we could see it if it happens.
Thank you, mate. Gentlemen, it's been a wonderful show. I want to thank you for your presence here at Red Corner Boxing as usual. I'm much appreciated. Two of the best guys to talk boxing with on HardTalk USA. But for now, we have come to the end of the show. Join us next week, guys. We'll do another review show. I haven't thought of the topics yet. I will think of some more. And believe you me, it'll be hard, gritty talk. I'm fed up with all the stuff that goes on the timeline. It's just too generic for me. There's no questions asked. There's very little probe into it. Excuse the pun. But listen, guys, thanks once again. This is HardTalk USA, episode 33, the great WBC debate. With me, Mr. Neutral, and my great guest here tonight, this show is proudly sponsored by EasyStories.com, our very first sponsor on Red Corner Boxing, when big things are going to happen here. And for all your local and nationwide storage needs, please go to EasyStories.com. Once again, thanks, guys. Mr. Neutral is signing out. HardTalk USA is now over.